Thank you for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Ji-yoon in Seoul. Coming up on today's program. Korea's National Pension Service agrees to a debt restructuring plan for troubled Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering. Researchers here in Korea develop a transparent film that may be used to better detect fake products. These stories and more coming right up. Korea's pension fund has accepted a bailout package for Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, paving the way for one of the world's largest shipbuilders to stay afloat despite being unprofitable in recent years. Our Hwang Jae starts us off.
Korea's National Pension Service has given the green light to a bailout plan for the troubled Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering. The NPS, the shipbuilder's major bondholder, agreed on Monday to accept a debt-to-equity swap proposal. The NPS said approving the bond restructuring deal will help raise the organization's profits in the long run. The acceptance of the NPS, which holds 30% of the company's bonds, however, does not mean the debt-ridden shipbuilder has the final approval for its rescue plan. Enough remaining creditors will still need to vote for the debt-to-equity swap deal in a series of meetings over 2 days that started Monday. Their bondholders will consider whether to agree to a 50% debt-to-equity swap of roughly 1.5 trillion won, or roughly $1.3 billion, and a 3-year grace period on the remaining debt under the condition that state banks will provide Daewoo with an additional $2.6 billion. Pundits say, though, that the pension service's decision has paved the way for other creditors to keep one of the world's largest shipbuilders running.
We can say that Daewoo is gaining time to go through restructuring while getting away from the immediate liquidity crisis.
As the shipbuilder inches closer to a bailout, the focus now is on how fast Daewoo will be able to normalize its business operations and make the most of the massive amount of money poured into it. Hwang Jae, Business Daily.
Korea's major shipbuilders are expected to release their quarterly earnings next week or early next month, and they're anticipating a drastic drop in sales. Industry observers estimate that Hyundai Heavy Industries' quarterly sales will fall to some $8 billion, nearly $1 billion less than the same quarter last year. Samsung Heavy Industries is expecting sales of $1.8 billion, a drop of $350 million on year. Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering is also expected to see its sales fall, though estimates aren't available yet. The declines are mostly driven by nosediving ship orders, but the companies are still turning a profit due to cost-cutting measures. And the business sentiment of Korean retailers remains weak, with results from a survey for the April to June period extending the streak of pessimism to 8 consecutive quarters. According to the Korean Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which conducted a survey on roughly 1,000 businesses, the retail business sentiment index stood at 90 for Q2, rebounding slightly from the first quarter, but coming in lower than the same time last year. A reading below 100 means that pessimists outnumber optimists. Online retailers and home shopping operators were more optimistic that their businesses would improve, with figures above 100, contrary to that of brick-and-mortar stores like department stores, large supermarkets, and convenience stores. The Korean equity market successfully rebounded from last week's sluggish performance. Sentiment picked up after a number of external risks were mitigated. We're now joined by our markets contributor Choi Jin-seok to talk about overall stock market performance and upcoming market events. Hello, Jin-seok.
Great to be here.
All right, so how did the Korean stock market close on the first day of the week?
Both markets rebounded nicely on the first session of the week. The Kospi rose by 0.51% to close at 2145.76, while the Kosdaq surged by 1.82% to close at 629. Over the weekend, South Korea was cleared from possibly being named a currency manipulator in the U.S. Treasury Department's first foreign exchange policy report under President Donald Trump. It was instead kept on the monitoring list. Meanwhile, the North Korean regime conducted a missile launch instead of another nuclear test. These two factors helped mitigate geopolitical risks, giving the overall sentiment a boost. Although foreign investors on the Kospi market continued to unload shares, institutional investors who bought massive amounts of shares helped the index go higher. By sector, cosmetics, tourism, and distribution companies that have been suffering losses due to China's retaliatory measures against the THAAD deployment rose sharply, as U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said the issue of completing the THAAD installment is up to Korea's next president. The comment gave hope that Seoul and Washington might adjust the pace of the THAAD deployment.
And also, Q1 earnings season in the U.S. will be in full swing this week. So what are some of the companies that investors should keep their close eye on?
After a few U.S. major banks officially kicked off the Q1 earnings season, as many as 65 S&P 500 companies will report their earnings results this week. The list includes Netflix, Goldman Sachs, Yahoo, and Qualcomm. In other words, investors are expected to pay a lot of attention to the IT sector in the country. Market research firm FactSet says tech companies in the S&P 500 are expected to record a 13% growth in their Q1 profits. Expectations are the third highest following the financial sector and the materials sector. Therefore, it will be important for investors to see if these companies can meet such high expectations this week. Earnings results of companies such as Yahoo or Qualcomm are tied to Korea's IT sector, so investors here in Korea are expected to pay attention to the potential impact as well.
Now, there will be some companies reporting their quarterly profits results this week as well. So how are we expecting things to shape up?
Since the beginning of the U.S. earnings season was not that great, investors here in Korea are expected to have higher expectations for robust earnings by domestic companies. For this week, a number of companies will release their earnings, including LG Chemical on Wednesday, Hansem on Monday, and KB Insurance on Thursday. The beginning of the earnings season here in Korea was very good. Big companies including Samsung Electronics, POSCO, and major mobile carriers reported robust results, and the consensus of Q1 profits has recently been raised from 42.9 trillion Korean won to 43 trillion Korean won as well. One of the positive trends is that the dependency of the Korean market on Samsung Electronics has been lowered these days. As of March, the portion of the company's market cap within the entire market has decreased somewhat. Moreover, the momentum for robust earnings are expected to spread to sectors other than the technology sector.
So while good corporate earnings can definitely give a positive boost to the domestic market, but still geopolitical risks seem to be the negative catalyst in this. So what are some of the related events in this regard?
Investors will want to keep a close eye on the presidential election in France. The first round will take place on April 23, and the risk of Marine Le Pen's far-right party Front National advancing to the final round is expected to increase volatility in global financial markets. The Financial Times said 1-month options contracts on the euro-dollar pair have risen to their highest level since the fortnight before the Brexit vote. Experts say if Le Pen wins the election, the value of the euro against the dollar might collapse in a short period of time. One more thing to watch is that more and more voters have been supporting a far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who said he will renegotiate France's relationship with the European Union. Based on recent polls, no one seems to be a sure winner yet.
And coming back here in Korea, after the Bank of Korea raised its economic forecast for this year, expectations have been growing for further readjustments of growth forecasts from other organizations.
Right. The BOK's decision was the first upward revision in 3 years. Now experts and investors are shifting their focus to other growth forecasts by the IMF and the Korea Development Institute, or the KDI. The KDI will announce its growth outlook tomorrow. It usually unveils the revised forecast in May, but the presidential election has pulled things a little ahead of schedule. Experts think the KDI might raise its growth forecast this time. If so, domestic equity market could get a boost. The IMF will announce its growth outlook tomorrow night. Last month, the fund lowered Korea's growth forecast by 0.4 percentage points to 2.6%, which is the same as the BOK's recent prediction. Therefore, experts see the IMF is more likely to make no adjustments this time.
All right, thank you so much for the wrap-up today.
Thank you very much.
The number of workers employed by domestic automakers has expanded in aggregate over the 5 years running through the end of 2016. According to their business reports, more than 126,000 workers were collectively employed by Hyundai, Kia, Ssangyong, GM Korea, and Renault Samsung, an increase of 8.6% from 2011. By company, Hyundai Motor had added the most jobs over the 5-year period, followed by Ssangyong Motor and Kia Motors. GM Korea and Renault Samsung, on the other hand, had less jobs than they did in 2011. Meanwhile, the export value of future products tied to the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution has been rising. According to a report by the Institute for International Trade, a think tank of the Korea International Trade Association, the export value of future products such as robotics and new materials came to $76.7 billion last year. An annual average growth of 5% was logged since 2012, in contrast to an overall export drop of 2.5% over the same period. Future products also made up more of Korea's export pie, coming in at more than 15% in the first 3 months of this year. And even as we edge toward the Fourth Industrial Revolution, robots are already affecting our daily lives. They're becoming more than just cold machines and could potentially become a new coworker or even a friend. Our Park Se-young has more.
Cabo the robot has been hired as a barback at this local watering hole. His main task is to shave blocks of square ice into a round ball, but he can also strike up conversations with customers.
When we're too busy to carve ice, Cabo takes up the task. It's like having a reliable coworker or friend by my side.
Robots are no longer just machines. They've been assuming various roles in our daily lives. Humanoid robots like Cabo mimic facial expressions and can make eye contact with their human counterparts. This robot taught itself to play the Korean game Arkagi, where players try to flick their opponent's stones off the board, and now has a 90% win rate against humans.
Human-robot cooperation could bring about a manufacturing revolution. Ultimately, this will enable them to provide many other services in our daily lives.
The scope of robot applications is only expected to expand in the coming years on the back of continued technological advances. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
So there seems to be new technological advancements made by the day, but the flip side is that people looking to counterfeit new products and innovations have gotten smarter as well. And Korean researchers are looking to slow down that vicious cycle. Our Kim Mo-kyun has the story.
This is a bundle of skin whitening and moisturizing creams that made a big splash in the cosmetics market last year, or at least that's what some consumers were led to believe. But in fact, they were fakes. So instead of sitting pretty in the beauty shops, they were confiscated. It usually takes a lot of effort to round up counterfeit cosmetics, but it was easier this time thanks to a new technology. This transparent film was developed by a group of local researchers. It contains multiple layers of a coated chemical substance that can pick up humidity levels and display them in different colors. A single breath produces a blue clover shape. Adding more heat turns the leaf green and then red. This seemingly magical effect is produced by complex science. When the chemical substance in the sheets comes into contact with humidity, photonic structures within the chemical react, changing its thickness and producing the colors. Products with the film on them would be harder to fake. And it'll be applicable to past cases that were hard to figure out. And there are more advantages. Since no dyes or pigment are used in it, it's cost-effective and sturdy too.
Flexibility is one of the strengths of this film. The raw materials for the film and the cost of using it are cheap. That's why we predict it will smash the market once it's commercialized.
When it does hit the market, the film's first use will be to take down the distribution channels for counterfeit goods such as cigarettes, alcohol, and cosmetics. Kim Mo-gyan, Business Daily.
As Hallyu continues to sweep across the world, a new shopping and entertainment complex has been launched in Thailand, offering up a taste of Korea to fans from different countries. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
K-pop, a word that's now recognized all over the world as representing synthesized music and sharp dance routines. It's also an industry that has grown to be worth over billions of dollars in less than a few decades. This explains why investors in Thailand have poured in roughly $275 million to open Asia's largest shopping mall dedicated to K-pop.
With every stone, gravel, and tree used to build this place all these years, we aim to make SHOWDC the country's masterpiece.
Decorated with statues of palm prints of Korean stars, the 18,000 square meter complex aims to make customers feel like they are actually in Korea.
We might not need to travel to Korea anymore if everything is here.
The chairman says he hopes the mall can attract around 10 million visitors a year.
A lot of people around the world are Korea lovers, which is interesting for me. Therefore, we have dedicated the entire ground floor into a K-district that houses a lot of Korean restaurants, cosmetics, and fashion. Those who are fans of Korea can come visit.
Bangkok was named the #1 visited city last year by MasterCard, attracting roughly 32.6 million foreign visitors who brought in about $46 billion worth of business. The tourism ministry also added that out of its total international arrivals, almost a third were from China, where enthusiasm for Hallyu has been hard to exaggerate. Lotte Duty Free said it's also on track to opening its first store at the SHOWDC complex next month, with goals to generate about $1.4 million in revenue by the end of this year. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Meanwhile, in Japan, Tokyo's Koreatown of Shin-Okubo had taken a beating in recent years, bogged down by anti-ethnic Korean protests by ultra-conservative groups. But as such protests die down, business is set to be returning. Our Eunice Kim takes us there.
On the streets of Shin-Okubo, Tokyo's Koreatown, there's a crowd of young people enjoying hotdog, and across the street, a 3-hour wait for a seat at a famous Korean restaurant.
I'm here for the cheese takgalbi.
After Japan's anti-hate speech law went into effect last year, the demonstrations disparaging ethnic Koreans have dwindled, and smiles are returning to merchants and visitors here again.
I don't follow political issues. I didn't like hearing all the bad news about Korea.
For over 4 years, shopkeepers in Shin-Okubo took a sizable hit. What were 628 ethnic Korean-owned outlets in 2013 shrunk down to 384 this year, nearly halving. The empty stalls left behind have been taken by other proprietors, but the central commercial district is still populated by ethnic Koreans.
Things are so active these days that there are no available properties on the main street. Even high rents don't deter people.
A free K-shuttle runs throughout the week with hopes the neighborhood can revive as a must-visit spot for Korean culture.
As the Koreatown within Japan's capital city gets back on its feet, it remains to be seen whether the zone that once attracted 9 million visitors every year will be able to regain its past glory. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
A deteriorating living environment and a loss of growth momentum are the common causes behind the exodus of residents in many areas. But can such ghost towns get a second life? We take you to a neighborhood in Seoul that has done just that.
Take Seoul subway line number 2. Get off at Seongsu Station and you'll be welcomed by shoe-themed sculptures and galleries. If you walk along the sculptures, you'll come across small boutiques selling real shoes. About 500 handmade shoe brands are clustered in this area. Yu Hongshik is a shoe master with more than 50 years of experience in shoemaking. He is living proof of the legacy of Seongsu-dong, which was once an industrial town of shoe factories.
About 70% of Korea's shoe industry infrastructure was clustered in Seongsu-dong, from materials, craftsmen to factories. There was a huge shoe boom in the 1970s.
Seongsu-dong's strip of shoe shops started to gain popularity as early as 1950s. Later in 1964, the district was designated as a semi-industrial zone. However, handmade shoes made way for ready-made shoes from factories. From the 1980s, factories in Seongsu-dong began losing ground, with the immense popularity of sneakers. The economic activity that supported the neighborhood failed, and residents started to pack up and leave. The area was in desperate need for a change. In 2014, the district was included as part of the urban regeneration project by the Seoul Metropolitan Government. The project was aimed at reviving the decaying neighborhood and restoring its economy to its former glory.
Residents know their community more than anyone else. The project is led by a community council consisting of residents. The goal of the Seongsu Urban Regeneration Project is to create a clean and livable neighborhood and rebuild a community where residents can get along with one another.
The residents decided to introduce an analog feel to bring back the legacy of a handmade showtown. Remaining shoe factories set up a joint retail shop to cut down on distribution cost and offer competitive pricing.
About 10 factories teamed up to form a community-based company.
The variety is really wide and all sorts of styles, so I felt like I could make any choice for the shoes.
Old factories and houses also got a makeover. This street is especially popular with young people. It has emerged as a trending area on social media, and it's packed with young visitors even during weekdays. A factory area with a smell of leather and the noise of hammers hanging in the air has now turned into a myriad of artisan cafes. What happened to old houses? Instead of being torn down, this place was renovated into a cozy cafe. The cafe's patrons get a chance to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and relax in a peaceful environment. Urban regeneration in Seongsu-dong would not have been possible without the active involvement of residents in discussions and the decision-making process. The town's community council consists of 240 residents, small business owners, artists, and representatives from socially conscious companies.
When the Seongsu-dong project took off about 2 years ago, urban regeneration was still an unfamiliar concept. After attending workshops and training on urban regeneration, we thought the project would help us build a better neighborhood for our children and ourselves in the future. We decided to go ahead with the development project, and we have submitted many ideas for the past 2 years.
This alley is a collaboration between residents and artists. Colorful murals painted by residents and unique sculptures have turned a ghost town into one of Seoul's tourist attractions. However, there are some issues that remain to be resolved, including a much-needed boost to the handmade shoe industry and potential rent hikes. Residents and the Seoul government cite creating a sustainable growth engine as the ultimate goal of the project.
The ultimate goal of urban regeneration is to make a citizen-led initiative sustainable. It should last even after physical regeneration and community building and revival.
The amazing story of a small shoe town has turned into several books.
Seongsu-dong is experiencing rapid change. Keeping track of disappearing and new images of the town enabled us to see at a glance what we were thinking and what problems we were having.
The new wave of change that began in 2014 continues in Seongsu-dong. We look forward to seeing what the future holds for this vibrant neighborhood.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more of the day's top business stories, so don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.